Well, I guess this is it. If I'm to be perfectly honest, I'm rather excited. At least I think I'm shivering from excitement. It could just as easily be the cold. On second thought, it's probably nerves. Getting to meet my husband's closest friends is a little daunting. Some mortician's daughter marrying a high society bachelor was bound to ruffle a feather or two. Hurry up, darling. We wouldn't want to miss the grand reveal. I swallow my anxieties, the last hurdle before our honeymoon to the Scottish Highlands. Get through just one more evening without making a fool of yourself and everything will be fine, I tell myself. Coming. As we approach the mansion's entrance, the sheer size of the house becomes ever more apparent. I'd often look up the hill towards the old mansion from my village as a little girl, imagining what sort of kings and queens must live there, what it must be like on the inside. Occasionally, someone heading to the mansion would stop and ask for directions. They'd always look so regal, so unlike anyone in the village. I never dreamt I'd actually be attending a ball here one day. As if awaiting our arrival, the heavy oak doors slowly ease open as we approach them. The sounds of a chamber orchestra and the natterings of elevated society burst through the open door and spills out into the courtyard. The interior of the mansion's magnificent foyer fades into view as the eyes adjust to the almost blinding light. Grand burgundy walls lined with gold-framed portraits lead the eyes towards a monumental staircase rising up from the first floor and branching out onto the second like the tail of a giant mahogany whale. A wall of warm air and soft yellow light from the candles mounted along the walls rushes towards us. It's a welcome change from the harsh cold and darkness of the spring evening. Such taken in by the marvel, I barely notice as a glass of champagne is thrust into my hand by one of the impeccably dressed attendants. May I take your coat, madam? A tall, gaunt man dressed in a fine red jacket already begins to take my coat before I even have time to respond and hurriedly walks away, covering it with his arms. He seems almost as though he were ashamed to be carrying it. Is there something wrong with it? I wonder. I put the thought to the back of my mind. My husband's always telling me that I mustn't worry about silly things like this now that we're married, but I must confess that I often find it difficult to suppress the thoughts, particularly around new people. Charles, darling, why are their faces cut out like that, or crossed off? That's weird. Emerging from a crowd of people who are overflowing from one of the many packed rooms is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. Covered in fine jewels and a dress reaching the floor, she appears to float gracefully across the polished oak floorboards as she makes her way towards us. Beatrice, so beautiful to see you. So wonderful to see you. I trust Benjamin and yourself are keeping well? I am, my dear, but you know what Benjamin is like? Always off on one of his adventures with the Admiral and bringing back God knows what from those filthy natives. The physicians have absolutely no idea what it is this time, so he's taking things a little easy tonight in the drawing room with... The woman pivots to face me, her body effortlessly revolving on the spot. My goodness, pardon my manners. Who on earth is this magnificent specimen? Charles turns to face me and smiles. I usually feel more at ease when he does, but this time it feels different. Ah yes, Beatrice, I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Claire. Claire, may I introduce Miss Beatrice Darrington, a dear old family friend. Old? The woman snaps, a hint of humor in her tone. Careful, Charles, I know where the bodies are buried, you know. Beatrice turns to me with a smile and a wink. Why don't you join the men in the drawing room, Charles? Charles is fidgeting with the sleeves on his jacket. He seems nervous. Tonight they're to offer him the diplomat's position, I suspect, that has something to do with the way he's been acting. I can't really picture myself as the wife of a diplomat, entertaining Spanish dignitaries and dining with the royal family, but it does all sound awfully exciting. Regardless, I just need to make sure that I'm on my best behavior so that tonight goes as smoothly as possible. He's worked so hard for this. Beatrice glides towards an ornate large wooden door to the left of the hallways and beckons me over. Come, Claire, I'll introduce you to the other ladies in the parlor. Beatrice leads me through the large wooden door. As we draw closer, I notice the hundreds of intricate carvings covering the door and its frame. Depictions of what appears to be caterpillars line the outer frame, while swirling patterns of vines and hanging cocoons occupy the door itself. In the center of the uppermost panel is carved a single butterfly, its wings outstretched to display a mesmerizing pattern of coils and right angles that look almost mechanical, like the inner workings of a clock. Entering the parlor, it becomes apparent that the room has been exclusively reserved for a select few female guests. From the way they're dressed, I presume them to be the wives of only the most highest profile men here tonight. Pearls, gold, and jewels hang from every woman, each faultlessly dressed in fine silks and lace. I've never felt so out of place, but Beatrice's friendly demeanor does come as some comfort. Bay windows face out towards the front of the house. From up here on top of the hill, I can see the lamplights from my village pushing through the thick fog. When Charles visited my father's mortuary all those years ago, I would never have guessed that we would one day be married. He was so stuck up back then, always so prim and proper, I found it adorable. Ladies, Beatrice proclaims, addressing the other women in the room who are currently huddled together by the roaring fireplace like moths to a lit candle. I'd like to introduce you all to the newest member of our society, Miss Claire Addington. A crowd of women have now formed a tight circle around Beatrice and I. One by one, the women introduce themselves. The wives of landowners, high-ranking politicians, captains of industry. Between them, these women belong to some of the most powerful people in the world. As the wall of women thins and the introductions finally come to an end, I notice a woman sitting in a darkened corner of the room. Although I can barely see her, I get the sense that she's looking towards me. Not wanting to leave anyone for my introduction, I begin to cross the room towards her. As my eyes adjust to the shadow, I can make out the outline of a much younger woman than I was initially expecting. That's kind of creepy, that picture. I don't believe we've been introduced. The woman sits still and silent. My name's Claire. It's nice to meet you. The woman continues to remain still. Though I initially misinterpret it as heavy breathing, I can make out a quiet whispering coming from the woman. Perhaps she's unable to speak properly. I lean in, hoping to make out the words. The shrouded woman suddenly lurches forward and grabs my hand. Startled, I look down at the hands now grasping tightly onto mine. I recoil in disgust. The hands elicit a fear in me unknown. Perfectly circular holes cover every inch of her hand. Their interiors faultlessly smooth. Ugh. They're disturbingly pleasing to look at. No. I pull back my hand sharply, still reeling from the sight, as the woman slowly retreats back to her umbral position. Through all the shock, I'd failed to notice until now that the woman had slipped a small bottle into my hand. The label reads, formaldehyde, a liquid from which I'd more than familiar. My father would often use it to embalm the unclaimed bodies bound for the lecture halls at the university. But why would she be handing me this? Perhaps sensing my unease, I hear Beatrice call out to me from across the room. Pay no mind to Elizabeth, my dear. Worried at what one might think if she notices what I'm holding, I slip the bottle of formaldehyde under the fabric, cinching my waist. She glides over to me and glances towards the woman sitting in the dark corner. Elizabeth here doesn't talk too much these days. She's committed herself fully to her role. We're also very proud of her. There you are, you daft cow. A deep voice cries out from across the room, quickly followed by a guttural laugh. Stood in the doorway is a large, odious man, clearly heavily inebriated, propping himself up against the doorframe. Beatrice, visibly startled, snaps to face the intruder. Darling, how wonderful of you to drop by. Are you feeling much better? His gray tongue licks his dry, shriveled lips. As he approaches, the stench of cigar smoke fills the air. His face, wet with grease and sweat, is covered in bulging yellowish pustules so large that I fear they'll burst at any moment. He wraps his arms around Beatrice and drags her in closer. Her attempts to shroud her discomfort with a fake smile fails to pass as convincing to everyone watching. Hello, ladies. Lovely to see you all as always. The repulsive man latches onto my hand and with alarming force pulls me towards him. And who is this supple young thing? I catch my balance just in time to feel the slimy press of his cold, deflated lips against my hand. Claire, I'd like to introduce you to my husband, Mr. Benjamin Darrington. Beatrice seems relieved that his attention has now moved on to myself. I try not to presume what attracts a woman to a man, but this corpulent slug standing before me couldn't possibly be the spouse of the woman introducing him. Could this really be Mr. Darrington, the intrepid explorer I've heard so much about? You, my dear, are absolutely mouth-watering. Such a shame to waste you on just one man, don't you think, Beatrice? His bellowing laughter detaches pieces of chewed meat from his gnarled and twisted teeth and sends them flying across the room. Ugh. Yes, yes, what a lucky man that Charles is. The intensity of his stare is something I've come to accept from men of his age. A lucky man indeed, he grunts. Oh, choices. I mean, I'd pull my hand away. I quickly pull my hand away. He looks at me enraged. How dare you? You'll regret that, you insolent cow. Oh, okay. Darrington. The voice commands the attention of everyone in the room, all of which turn and gaze at the parlor doorway. There stands a very old and very frail gentleman in a green uniform adorned with a dozen or so highly polished medals. Admiral. Admiral? The same admiral who owns this mansion? I wonder. Despite being much larger than the Admiral, Mr. Darrington seems terrified in the old man's presence. Return to the drawing room at once, Darrington. Of course, Admiral. I lost myself. I do apologize. The odious Darrington scurries across the room and leaves through the wooden door from which he entered, avoiding making contact with the Admiral as he does so. The Admiral glances over to me. I'm unable to glean anything from his expression. I get little time to ponder on it before he promptly follows Mr. Darrington out of his room. I do hope I haven't ruined anything for Charles. Everyone visibly returns to ease as the doors close behind the two men. Now that we're alone, ladies, Beatrice seems to have reverted back to her confident self now that her husband is no longer present. I think it's time we let Claire hear in on our little secret. Secret? Don't tell me you haven't noticed. You are such a beautiful woman, Claire, and I'd forgive you for thinking that those good looks will last you forever. But sooner or later, that harsh reality of it all will come crashing down on you. Your looks will fade, your body will wrinkle, and Charles' eyes will start to wander. It's inevitable. Pretty soon, maybe 10 years if you're lucky, you'll be out on the street and find yourself replaced by a much younger, perkier woman. That's just the way of things with men. They expect beauty, and it's our duty to them as their wives to provide what they desire. That is God's plan for us women, after all. So naturally, one needs to take measures to prevent such things. Don't you agree? No, I don't really agree with what's being said. Well, of course, darling. We can't have you hanging from Charles' arm looking like a withered crone whilst you're out there in Spain representing the British. Huh? Here, darling. She holds out her open hand. Take this and you needn't worry ever again. In her open palm sits a large gray coiled insect. It's alive, its legs writhing in the air as it lays stuck on its back. What the hell is that? This, my dear, is a marvelous little creature. It was many years ago now. I was just a young girl at the time. The Admiral had returned from one of his many expeditions carrying a small wooden box full of the things. They'd been looking into them apparently and had figured out they had this wonderful property of keeping one thin and beautiful. Needless to say, it's pretty quickly became one of our little secrets here. One of the other women speaks up. Interestingly, I don't seem to recall her from the earlier introductions. Unlike the others, she's dressed surprisingly conservatively. No jewels or fineries, save for the small silver crucifix at the end of a rosary-beaded necklace. Combined with her withered face and smug expression, there's no mistaking that I'm in the presence of a nun. Ew. It's one of our Lord's most marvelous creations. Its eternal beauty, as God intended Eve to provide for Adam. And the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him." Oh. You see, little girl, she spouts patronizingly. It's a woman's place to support her husband in life as it has been for generations. Beauty is just a part of that which is tasked to us. A woman is to be a flower upon his mantle, protected from the harshness of the outside, forever bringing beauty to the man who plucks her from the ground. Huh. Interesting. Consuming the gift completes you as a woman. It resolves the sins of Eve so that you can better serve your husband. You want me to swallow that thing? Beatrice pushes her hand closer to me. There are other methods, but consuming the insect orally is by far the most pleasant. No, it stays inside you, and that's when the magic happens. No matter how much you eat, you'll remain slim. Your skin will be as soft and as clear as a white rose. Simply put, your body will retain its youthful appearance for years and years to come. In fact, later tonight you'll have the privilege of meeting the Admiral's wife. Beatrice leans inwards and softens her voice. Not a word to anyone, but I've heard she's to turn 96 this year, and I dare say you'd mistake her for a woman of your own age. There's really no reason for it to fear it, darling. All the women here have ingested one. Ugh. I don't want... I know. There's no... Honestly, the thing that gets me is I think that living forever would be awful in a way. I think for some reason there's something about getting older that's respectable, and it makes you have to use the time while you're here more appropriately and effectively. That sounded really professional, but yeah, refuse. My dear, you wouldn't want Charles to run off with another woman now, would you? Her motion does little to convince me. I know Charles loves me. However, there is another reason I'm swayed to accept. I can't let Charles down, not tonight. If I'm to be accepted by these people, then I surely can't be refusing the first gift they offer me. No, come on, please no. No. No! I slowly pick up the writhing bug from Beatrice's palm, steeling myself. I quickly put the insect into my mouth. I take a sip of champagne and swallow hard. No! I feel it writhing around on my tongue and down my throat. Marvelous. Beatrice leads the other women in a polite applause. At the same time, I begin to feel a sharp pain in the pit of my stomach. I clutch my stomach as a sharp jolt rushes through me. Ah, yes, I did fail to mention that you may feel some pain at first. Don't worry, your body will acclimatize to it. It's simply the miraculous effects being gifted to your body. It's the pain we all must endure as payment for Eve's sinful ways, child. Pain is required for beauty to flourish. Put simply, pain is beauty, and beauty can only be born from pain. The pain continues to grow. It's hard to push the thought of that insect latching onto my stomach to the back of my mind. Without warning, the entire mansion reverberates with the ringing of a large bell that sounds throughout each room. Oh my, what perfect timing! Beatrice beams with delight. Perfect timing for what? It's time for the reveal of the Admiral's wife. She rarely makes appearances these days, but when she does, it's always a sight to behold. She was the first of us to go through what you've just experienced. Come, Beatrice asserts excitedly, already motioning towards the parlor door. Come quickly, we wouldn't want to miss her. Vacating the parlor, we are ushered through the long, winding corridors of the mansion to a large hall where it appears everyone else has already gathered. The outside wall of the hall is lined with long, thin windows which stretch from the floor to the ceiling and face out to a garden shrouded in the darkness of the boreal night. The other walls are lined with various exotic ornaments, carvings, and paintings. The ornaments, at first glance, appear to resemble artifacts from some long-gone civilization. Perhaps spoils brought back by the Admiral from his excursions and his days as explorer. They're unnerving for reasons I can't quite fathom, yet surprisingly familiar, like the fading memory of a frightful dream. The attendants stood in the hall silently facing a set of double doors towards the front of the hall. I see Charles in the distance. I try to wave at him, but he, along with everyone else, seems fixated at the double doors. The pain from the creature is growing more intense now. With a loud clunk that echoes throughout the grand hall, the large double doors burst open. From the darkness behind them emerged a woman sitting on a wheeled leather chair, being pushed out by one of the attendants. The squeaking of the wheels finally comes to a stop, and I peek above the woman in front of me to take a better look. I almost collapse, stunned and horrified at the sight before me. No. A young woman's body sits in the chair, but her neck holds above it something from only the darkest of nightmares. A rotting head, caved inwards as if consumed from the inside of all muscle and bone. The mouth forced open by the body of a large translucent maggot. What remains of the face is inflating and deflating as the lungs struggle to push air past the engorged body of the writhing maggot. No. The clicking of small bubbles flopping in the mucus as the maggot wriggles and flops aimlessly around on the surface of what was once the woman's face can be heard all the way to the back of the hall. Why is everyone so quiet? Does nobody see what I'm seeing? Why is nobody saying anything? Why isn't Charles saying something? I turn to Beatrice. Her eyes are wide, fixated on me. She grabs me by the chin and forces me to look at the woman in the chair. I try to resist, but my muscles seem rigid, locked in place. Why can't I move? What's happening to me? Beatrice whispers in my ear, "Isn't she simply the portrait of beauty?" Never again need she worry about her physical appearance from age of overeating. The creature takes care of all that. Her husband is simply overjoyed at the results, as will yours, my dear. I struggle and squirm, but my body fights back. I try to scream, but fail, instead letting out only a short, stifled squeal. Hush, my dear, soon you'll sleep. It might seem strange to you just now, but that's natural. In time, you'll come around to it. Everyone does. The pain in my stomach is unbearable now. Waves of intense pain shoot through my body. I begin to feel myself drifting in and out of consciousness. I see Charles from the corner of my eye. He's not moving or helping or doing anything at all. He's just standing there, staring at me, expressionless, watching. Why? What did I do wrong? I'm awoken by an icy breeze brushing past my exposed legs to find myself lying on a damp stone floor. From what little light seeps from beneath the wooden door, I'm slowly able to identify the boundaries of the stone room in which I find myself entombed. My mind wanders back and forth between the events of the evening, unable to fully make sense of my situation. One important detail does, however, stand alone above all others. That bastard, he tricked me. I should have realized by the way he was acting all evening. Was this whole thing a trick, or did he genuinely think I'd just accept all this? He's insane. They're all insane. Pain isn't beauty. I won't give them the satisfaction of it. The thought of becoming like that poor woman sickens me. I have to find a way free from this prison one way or another. I force myself to my feet and stumble around the room, my fingers clutching the wet stone walls as I move closer to the wooden door. Predictably, the door is locked tight. Attempting to cry out for help, I find only a whisper passes through my lips. My throat feels tight. It's difficult to breathe. Following the icy draft leads me to a pile of rocks in the corner of the room. I lift one of the rocks to reveal a small hole that leads outside. The faint blue hue of moonlight illuminates the interior of the hole, sending a beam of light shooting into the darkness of the room. The hole itself is far too small to make any attempt at an escape, but while reaching inside in an attempt to loosen the bricks which make up the wall, I find a scrap of rolled up paper. It looks like someone was trying to hide it in here. I angle the paper against the shaft of moonlight. Written on the page is what appears to be a letter. Samantha, I pray that this letter finds you before it's too late. I've convinced a servant boy to deliver this message the next time he drops by. Please take care that no harm comes of him. We'll have no doubt traveled a long way to get this to you. You were right. You were right about everything. You tricked me as you said he would. I should have followed your advice and declined his offer. I tried to leave. I tried to tell people, but they found me and locked me here. There's another woman locked up with me too, yet I fear she may not last the week. It's those insects, those little colorless ones Mr. Darrington asked us to look into. They found out what they can do. More importantly, they're forcing women to ingest them. The woman with me, I feel she's been down here for a long time. When the Lord gives her mercy, she's unconscious, her waking moments mostly filled with screams of agony. She doesn't speak much. When she does, she tells me about her young daughter, Beatrice. If you find her, please take care of her. They grow in our skin, just beneath the surface. It starts out as little bumps, but they grow and grow. When they get too big, they eat their way out. The holes, Samantha, those perfectly circular holes they leave behind. I can't stop thinking about them. The ones we saw in the young woman at the party. Oh, so she's... Ew. This is their idea of what's beautiful. They care not for health. They just seek to fit women into their sick, twisted form of beauty. I have a last resort, although I pray it does not come to it. Our work studying the effects of formaldehyde on its crystallization process. I'm wondering whether there's a chance that it might work for me too. I still have a small bottle of it in my Lepidopterus kit. If I'm able to retrieve it from the study, I could drink it, although I fear that if I do, I may never see you again. You have to get the word out to my father. Tell him everything that happened that night. He'll know what to do. Please hurry, Samantha. My arm has been itching for the past few days now. Yours forever, Elizabeth. So she gave us that. Is that her? Oh, it was Elizabeth. From within the hurricane of swirling questions blustering through my mind, one word finds its way out: formaldehyde. So is that Elizabeth and she's writing to Samantha? That's what the woman in the parlor handed to me. The woman in the letter said it was her last resort. What did Elizabeth intend for it to do? Would it have killed her? Would it kill me? The small bottle of formaldehyde is still there, nestled safely between the folds in the fabric of my dress. I can't let the same fate befall me as Elizabeth. No matter what happens if I drink the formaldehyde, it couldn't be worse than being eaten alive from the inside by whatever these things are. Even if it does kill me, I think I'd prefer that to the alternative. I pull out the tiny cork and press the rim of the bottle against my lips. The fumes sting the inside of my nose. They remind me of home, of my father. Steeling myself, I quickly tip back the bottle. The formaldehyde burns as it hits the back of my throat, and I almost choke. I feel my body begin to contract almost immediately. I look down to my burning hands and feet. The heat travels quickly. Eventually, my whole body feels as though it's aflame. Slowly at first, my pores are forced open, and soon a dark, vicious discharge begins to ooze from them. It quickens, the fluid getting thicker as it does until pretty soon my whole body is covered in it. In horror I watch, paralyzed or simply stunned, as fluid from my head dripped down my face, covering my eyes and mouth. What little light surrounded me in the room is now gone. Like hot wax cooling on skin, the fluid begins to tighten. My heartbeat begins to slow. Suddenly I'm calm, relaxed. I feel the powerful pull of sleep drawing me in, then silence. As pieces of the chrysalis begin to finally dry and fall away, Claire slowly begins to awaken. Lifting her head, she faces the blistering wind and eases her encrusted eyes open. In front of her stands a small wooden church, the peeling white paint on the church facade illuminated by the pale moonlight. As she begins to stand, she's reminded of me as I thrash and gnaw at her from within, and the sharp pain shoots through her once again. Oh, swear the insect? Through the pain, she hears me calling out to her. Her body, her autonomy is now mine to own. As I will her to move, it is so. Whoa, guys. We gotta go up to the church. The thick wooden double doors of the church are locked tightly. A large iron panel, rusted from years' weathering, slides back to reveal a keyhole. Okay, so we gotta find a key. I bet the key's over here somewhere. The image in front of her is all too familiar. A picture of the mansion stands tall against a pale sky. Unaware of how much time has passed since she trapped us in that rotting basement, she mistakenly admires the intricacy of what she believes to be a painting. But I know the truth. I've been waiting and listening as the world outside changed, as technology marched endlessly onwards, but society stood firm. Soon, I think to myself, I will join my brothers. As she reaches out to touch the picture, perhaps to admire it further, a large rusted key falls. I didn't read that all the way. As I will it, she picks up the key and places it into her pocket. Into our pocket, she said. Obtained rusty key. It said our pocket, guys. That was weird. See if I can get a good picture of this for a thumbnail. I can, yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is awesome so far. Shoot. She tentatively places the rusty key into the lock and turns it. Within a loud clunk, the door swings open. I'm coming, brothers. Wait, what? Terrified, she resists my movements. But I'm in control. I've waited for this moment for far too long. We press on. Oh, what is that? What is that? Oh, I hate that. Is that look at that. Is that a big maggot? Oh, look at him. Is he petting it? Ugh. My brethren feast upon a woman slumped by his stones. Oh! That tablet built by man commends him for his discovery of us and our subsequent integration. Fools. The woman reaches out towards Claire and I. I reach out our hand to meet the woman's. Obtain church back door key. Thank you, brothers. May I soon swell and burst from my fleshy prison to become as beautiful as you. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at him on the wall. Ew, man. Look at him. That's awful. I hate that. She lightly pushes on the door, no longer in control. I walk her through the threshold and towards our joint destination. Oh, are these like strings from the maggots? Claire may try to resist me, but alone she is weak. Perhaps together they could all resist us, but what a stupid thought. Most men do nothing to stop us. Why would they? We make everything so easy for them, after all. No, we are far too ingrained now, a parasite buried deep within their society. For thousands of years, we waited for a society that would appreciate us, for a society that would love us, feed us, allow us to grow. Who would have thought that such a society would have been born from man and his own lust for control? This has some deeper meaning. I'm just trying to understand it. Oh, those sounds. Oh, where are we, man? The world is beautiful now. Oh, look at the huge insects. Pain is beauty, pain is beauty, pain is beauty, pain is beauty. Is that the end? Oh man, that was really cool. That was actually really cool. So it was the bugs. I thought it was saying like women or something were waiting for rights, but no, the bugs were just taking over everything. Oh, that was so cool. I'm going to put the link in the description for that. It's called HELPMEET Beneath the Skylight by Turtle Soup, as you just saw. I'll link his account and this game account in the description. And yeah, I really liked the end when you could control it. I think if he did a game like that too, that'd be cool. But just the dialogue in the beginning was really almost like a reminiscent of a movie or something. That could be a movie. But yeah. All right. Creepy, especially the images of like the insect in the lady's hand and the lady with all the holes. I hated that. But yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, and really unique. Nothing like that normally comes out. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely did. And I'll see you next time whenever I decide to post something like this. Adios.